Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Brown Bag. Before we start, do we have any announcements? Any announcements?
Actually, I wanted to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't remember if this has been announced yet, but we do have an updated grad handbook that is on the website. So if you guys want to go look at that, it is up there.
Great, thank you. And I have a request. We have some openings in the schedule. So I encourage you, students, faculty, to volunteer for giving a brown bag talk. It doesn't have to be, it's a brown bag talk. It doesn't have to be polished or anything. If you work on something, you're excited about something, you have a paper that you want to present, feel free to send me an email to volunteer and take one of the open spots. Thank you. And now for today, we have a master thesis presentation. And I don't know if, Deb, do you want to introduce Shruti?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
So Shruti joined our program, joining up with Nathan. But then, of course, now she's transitioned to my lab. Delighted to have her. For those of you who are more junior students, in our thesis, you're required to defend a final document and also give a presentation of it. So she's defended her final document. Our program has said, yes, that's what we expect of our students, yay. And then so today she's going to give her official presentation of it. So I hope you all enjoy it and have plenty of questions for her.
Thank you. So Shruti, please upload your talk. And when you're ready, please start.
Yeah, everyone can see this. See my screen, me,
yes,
and
perfect.
I'm all over. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shruti Bomareddy. I hope everyone's doing great today. And today I'm going to present my master's thesis titled Effects of Resilience and Work Engagement on Employee Wellbeing and Counterproductive Work Behavior among Executives of Pharmaceutical Industries. I'd like to first acknowledge my advisor back in India, Dr. Nilesh Thakre, and my committee members, Dr. Anindya Sovni and Dr. Anita Sanu. I completed this thesis in partial fulfillment of the requirement for master's degree at Srimati Nathibai Damodar Thakre W University, Mumbai, India. I'd like to also acknowledge all the patience and support of my family and friends. Next, I acknowledge my current advisor, Dr. Deborah Steele Johnson, and my committee members, Dr. Nathan Bowling and Dr. David Lohaus. And a special thank you for all MLT members for your guidance and support. Now that I have completed all my formalities and everything, let's dive into the content of my thesis. I know what you were thinking on my first slide. Why are there many variables on this title? Apart from it being one of the requirements of my thesis, the certain issues made me choose these specific concepts to study on. The first is my internship experience. I was working in one of the leading pharmaceutical industries of Asia in capacity of learning and development intern. My team was given a task to address why are there so many absconding, disinterested, and high turnover rates during that time. Being from IO psychology background, all the heads were partially turned over to me. So I looked into the statistics to explain to my boss then, from the literature point of view, why is it happening? Did it happen somewhere else, etc. That's where I came across the global employee vital signs. These signs showed that 21% of employees are engaged, 33% are thriving on well-being scales, and it is to be noted that India in various sectors is ranked in the bottom section of these scales. The 45% of these employees also experience a lot of stress from the previous days, and the companies are losing revenue of estimated from $6 to $200 billion due to employees' deviant and delinquent behaviors. The next interesting component, when I was reading through, was human dimensions of organ sustainability and its importance. The prior research targeted the other dimensions. However, the current globalization is leading to perform or perish, affecting both at micro and macro level of organizational sustainability, making it very critical to expand the research of the human dimensions of organizational sustainability. The pharma and medical produce industry in India is categorized under manufacturing industry, and it follows the management principle of 3M, which is men, money, and material. And it is known in the field or in the industry that if one of them is neglected or overlooked, then it is the fall of the establishment. And as industry in India is an open economy where there is no monopoly, but only regulations, here, open economy refers to not only where domestic factors, but also entities in other countries engage in trade of products. Indian pharma is the third largest medicine producer of the world, and it provides about 60% of world vaccines. So the regulations are not only from the Indian government, but also like CDSCO and drug control and drug and cosmetics and narcotics. But also international regulations were set up by US FDA, Health Canada, EMEA of Europe, Thai FDA, HAS Singapore, DOH Philippines, MedSafe New Zealand, DGM Belgium, BARFM Germany, MPA Sweden, Swissmedic, and NAFADAC of Nigeria. These are also having a very big impact on Indian pharmaceutical industries down there. These are the report given by BEFA, which talks about the major export destinations in Indian pharmaceutical industry for the financial year of 21. North America alone has 34% of our exports. Then comes the African Union, which has about 18%, and the European Union stands at 15.7%. ASEAN, which is short form of Association of Southeastern Asian Countries, which is about 10 countries in Southeast Asia, is ranking around 6.9%. LAC, that's Latin American Caribbean region, takes about 6.8%. Middle East countries, we provide about 5.6%, and the other countries we provide around 13%. Why am I giving these statistics? It's just to give you an overview for how the pharmaceutical industry in India runs through. It's because my data collection is done in an Indian context. Next, we've looked into the pivotal mechanism of sustainability, which we were talking about the prior. It's having a very much has a very mechanism in the for the employees to thrive or to be engaged in a workplace. And it's also known in the research that work engagement is a core part of the human dimensions of organization sustainability. So next, this is the outline of my presentation. First, I'm going to introduce you my variables, my prior research, and then hypothesis. Then I'll go into method, results, discussion, and conclusion. First, my predictors are work engagement resilience. Work engagement, it is defined as a positive, fulfilling, work-related state of mind, which is characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption. Vigor is characterized by high levels of energy and willingness to invest one's effort in the work and be persistent in the face of difficulties. Dedication. Dedication refers to being strongly involved in one's work and experience a sense of significance, enthusiasm, and inspiration. Finally, absorption. Absorption is categorized by fully concentrating and being engrossed in one's work where time passes by quickly. Next is job demand resource model, where work engagement is a product of balance between job demands, for example, workload and time pressure, and available resources such as decision latitude, supervisor support, co-worker support, and extrinsic rewards. Next is my resilience. Now, resilience in layman terms, it is known to be as bouncing back from adversity. In organization and management studies, resilience can be understood as a skill and a capacity to be robust under conditions of enormous stress and change. And thus can be categorized or even being measured in terms of living authentically, finding your calling, maintaining perspective, managing stress, building social connections, and staying healthy. The next we have our outcomes, employee well-being. It is defined as an overall quality of employees' experience and functioning at work. And employee well-being is constituted by four discrete factors. One, social well-being. Second, psychological well-being. Next, subjective well-being, and workplace well-being. At a macro level, it promotes healthy workforce. Next, my second outcome is counterproductive work behavior, and you all know it's probably abbreviated to be as CWB. CWB is a behavior that harms an organization or the employees, co-workers by the employee. It includes acts such as theft, sabotage, verbal abuse, withholding of effort, lying, refusing to cooperate, and physical assault. It is also commonly referred to as a negative extra role behavior. Next is my prior research. This prior research is in the combinations of all the variables. The first, we're looking at the work engagement, whereas there is a holistic theoretical connection with the others historically. Started with Goffman stating that people's attachment and detachment to their roles vary, which was later argued by Kahn, specifying that there's different scenarios in organizations, as there's not only just face-to-face encounters, but also the other dimensions like money and material, which we talked earlier about, the 3M, that's men, money, and material, as a management principle, and later included in the organizational life and derived at something called as ongoing, emotionally charged, and psychologically complex. A cross-national study was done by Chaka and his colleagues on the healthcare employees, where they've seen that highly engaged employees had higher employee well-being scores compared to the employees with lower work engagement scores. The next is counterproductive work behavior. Social exchange theory, that is SET, said by Balu, can provide us a theoretical perspective of counterproductive work behavior. According to SET, employee responds positively to favorable situations and negatively to unfavorable situations. This theory provides basis for explaining why employees choose to engage more or less. If an employee is not handled favorably, they will reciprocate the same as well. Hence, less engaged employees involve themselves in such activities, which can potentially harm the employment and organization. The cross-national study was done by Chen and his colleagues with the participants of USA and China, mainland China. So the employees with high work engagement lead to decreasing effect of counterproductive work behavior. They also saw the moderation effect of personal resources to this effect. Next is prior research for resilience. The Bogarts and his colleagues revealed that resilience has greater impact on employee well-being of the high-risk and high-intensity work employees like forensic healthcare, who are in the frequent interaction with target group audience, and the participants are assisting in providing medical input to the target audience. So in this study, it concludes that the forensic health and care workers who have high resilience have a higher psychological well-being, and they have the other variables which related to work-related stress and COVID-19 fear, because they were in interaction with the target group audience. The next, the study by Hugh and his colleagues concluded that employee well-being with more resilience, employee with more resilience and capability to deal with work pressure, and are engaged to have a high employee well-being. And these are resilient than the others. The people who are having the high resilience are healthier, which are compared to more than the other ones who are in the lower scale terms of resilience. The next is of EWB. There are many theories which describe and talk about EWB, but that employee well-being, but effective events theory, that's AET, is given by Wes and his colleague. This theory explains the process of emotions and moods affecting the job performance and pleasure specifically. This theory further explains the very link between the internal influences or attributes like personality, emotions, cognitions, and also reactions to the workplace. So workplace situations of the employees given. So this is also in contribution with how they react to those situations, if not when they have a favorable or unfavorable situations. This theory also gave the distinction of affective work behavior, which constitutes employee mood, and emotion, on the other hand, job satisfaction, which is a significant indicator of cognitive-based behavior. And the consequences of high employee well-being can also be high performance and high morale, along with the other common consequences of it. The next is interaction, which we are looking forward to do in the study, as one could be explained by conservation of resource theory, popularly known as core theory, wherein where it defines the relation as a positive interaction between engagement and resilience with integration model of personal resources, added with the stress of adversity, and has an impact on productivity and well-being at workplace. In the support to this theory of resources, the revised version of JDR model theory of Baker and his colleague not only sought out to explain a negative psychological state, which is burnout, but also the positive counterpart, which is work engagement. The revised model of this work engagement combines the job resources and personal resources, which includes resilience as a component, will together have an interaction impacting the work engagement, are set to lead to performance containing in-role performance and extra-role performances. Next, now that we've done the prior research, now let's dive deeper into my hypothesis. My first hypothesis is that I predict a significant effect of work engagement on employee well-being. This is a replication hypothesis of Meyer and Matlin, Chuck and his colleagues, Wright and Caprienzo, where all these studies concluded that higher levels of work engagement are more productive, and it provides a broader conceptualization of employee well-being. My second hypothesis is that I predict a significant effect of resilience on employee well-being. This is also a replication hypothesis of Lee, Hugh, Chaprion-Kelly, Savalno, and their colleagues respectively, where the studies addressed if employees are resilient and are capable to deal with work pressure, then it leads to a positive outcome of higher employee well-being. My next hypothesis is that where I predict a significant effect of work engagement on counterproductive work behavior. This is also a replication hypothesis of Ernie, Chen, Colbert, Serki, and their colleagues respectively. These studies saw that the relation between work engagement and counterproductive work behavior, where the results show that employees scoring low counterproductive work behavior score low on counterproductive work behavior when they're highly engaged to their work. Also, the study by Serki and his colleagues saw that the complexity of work influences this relationship. My next hypothesis is that I predict a significant effect of resilience on counterproductive work behavior. This is also a replication hypothesis of King and Rothstein and theoretical perspective Spector and his colleagues. These conclude that employees with workplace resilience as a self-component has seen a low incidence of employee opting for negative behavior, that is counterproductive work behavior. My fifth hypothesis is a prediction of the significant interaction effect between work engagement and resilience on employee well-being. I have postulated this with my understanding of two theories, that is one conservation of resource theory, which is a core theory. According to this, there's a positive interaction between resilience and engagement, which are the personal resources added with the stress of adversity, has an impact on productivity and employee well-being at workplace specifically. The next is revised our model of work engagement, where it's a combination and balance between personal resources and job resources, and engagement among the employee leads to well-being, higher levels of well-being. My next hypothesis is, this is my last hypothesis, and I predict here that a significant interaction effect between work engagement and resilience on counterproductive work behavior. I've postulated this on the basis of social exchange theory. This theory can provide us a theoretical perspective why employees react favorably, unfavorably to certain situations through their interaction of the personal resources like resilience and job resources and their outcome of engagement having a negative, unfavorable situations. This theory also extends in saying that if employees are less engaged, they tend to have a harmful behavior, which not only affects him or her and also the co-workers, but also organization at the large. Now, these are my hypotheses. Let's see what my study has resulted in. Before going to results, I'll describe the method of my study, where I'll talk about my participants, the measures that I used, the procedures that I followed through. First, my participants. As my title itself gives you a hint of it, it's about the executives of pharmaceutical industry. These executives should be either of middle level or junior level of their organization. Junior or executive should be a minimum of 22 years old, and a middle level executive should be a minimum of 30 years old. And these executives should be working a minimum of 1 year in the current company. So next is my measures. I use resilience at work, raw scale developed by Malik and Garg in 2018 to measure resilience at workplace. The internal consistency, that's a Convac alpha of the scale, is 0.84. The number of items were 20, and it was measured on the scale of 1 to 7, that is from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And the scale was composite, had summed up to the whole as a composite method. And the sample item, a sample item of the scale is that I have developed a reliable ways to deal with stress of challenging events at work. My next scale to measure employee well-being was developed by Pradhan and Haiti in 2019. It's titled Employee Well-being Scale. It has Convac alpha of 0.89, measured in 31 items. And it was measured on the scale of 1 to 5, which is from strongly disagree to strongly agree. A sample item of this scale is I easily adapt to day-to-day changes of my life and manage my responsibilities well. My next scale to measure work engagement is Utrecht Work Engagement Scale developed by Schaffall and Baker in 2004. The internal consistency of the scale is 0.88 and the number of items were 17. It was measured on the scale of 1 to 7, that is never to always. It's a composite measure that I've taken at the end during my analysis. And a sample item is that at my work, I always persevere and even when things do not go well. My next scale is Counterproductive Work Behavior Checklist, developed by Spector and his colleagues in 2006. And the internal consistency is 0.797, measured on 32 items. The scale is measured on the scale of 1 to 5, which is from never to every day. It's a composite measure that I've taken during the analysis of the items. The sample item of the scale is I insulted someone about their job performance. It is to be noted that the resilience at work scale and employee well-being scale are developed for Indian workforce by Indian authors, where I've used, but the work engagement scale and this counterproductive work behavior are developed by the West, which have been taken to the Indian context, which is why there is this, which I've used this diagram to this table to show you how there is a literature review and how my current study Convac alphas are there. Fortunately, all my Convac alphas of the current study isn't good enough to measure it. So going on, this is my procedure to study the whole thing. First, I contacted the organizations and companies and identified their point of contact and briefed the study of the whole thing. And later I circulated the questionnaire with the consent of participants. And then after they filled it, I collected them. Then it was a big task where I had to eliminate the responses based on criteria, inclusion criteria, and the only partly completed ones, which were many, and do the statistical analysis later on after doing all the data sorting and cleaning. So after the big task, I will next talk about my results. First, I will describe my demographic details, then I'll go to my hypothesis testing. Going on. Well, first, I would like to describe my sample characteristics. As we know, there are two criteria that we have taken on the junior level and middle level. I had junior level of 91 participants with an average age of 29 years old. And the middle executives were 89 participants, which were 34 years old. Next, we have gender. As you can see, we have a large sample of male constituting about 90.6% and only 9.4% of females. You must be thinking, what? Why? How come? So it's because the males are preferred over the females in this line of work. And from personal experience of Indian pharmaceutical industry, they explicitly mention in their hiring posts that male candidates are preferred. And in some cases, they also write only to say that only males are required. It's also because of couple of things. One, the sales traveling in India could be very critical for females. It could be restrictions of family, society, and safety issues could be one of the things that impact this kind of gender variation in my study, and also in general in the pharmaceutical industry. Next is we have participants from both corporate and plant-based settings. The corporate settings, we have about 18.3% and 81.6% are from plant-based. The next, I collected data from 2 big companies and 4 small companies. These were categorized in terms of size and the number of employees. Next, this is the visual representations of all my outliers in the form of box pixels plot, where we have employee well-being colored in blue, and work engagement is colored in red. We have counterproductive work behavior colored in green, and then resilience is colored in purple or violet. Yeah. So these are my outliers. We had around 50 outliers in the study that we've counted for. Next, those are my descriptive statistics. The first, we have a total of 180 participants. The resilience has a mean of 95.15 and a standard deviation of 13.19. The work engagement has a mean of 74.21, 18.75 is a standard deviation. Employee well-being has a mean of 125.98 and a standard deviation of 12.68. The counterproductive work behavior, my last outcome is having a mean of 40.79 with a standard deviation of 14.95. As I mentioned earlier, all my scales were calculated on a composite level, where I've calculated all the items were calculated on a single item, a single scale. Next, so I'm going to divide my results in my hypothesis description on basis of my outcomes. First, I'll describe all the hypotheses related to employee well-being, and then I'll go towards counterproductive work behavior. So first, I'll describe the hypothesis 1 and 2, 2 and 5, which is for employee well-being. As you can see on the screen, I've used a 2 into 2 factorial design where I have seen a work engagement and resilience at 2 levels, that's low and high. Over here, you can see that low work engagement and low resilience has a mean of, for employee well-being, is 115, where employee has low engagement and high resilience has employee well-being at 129.76, and work engagement at high levels with low resilience has 122.32, but an employee with higher work engagement and resilience has a mean for employee well-being of 134.56. As you can see, the highest employee well-being scores is for when employee has a high work engagement score and high resilience scores. And the lowest is for when the employee is having a low work engagement and low resilience, which stands at 115. Next, we'll look into our hypothesis 1, where I hypothesized that there is an effect of work engagement and employee well-being. As you can see on the screen, work engagement with a mean score of 15,503 with F-valve 15.73 is significant at 0.01 level with a degree of freedom 1. My next hypothesis was about how the effect of resilience on employee well-being. As you can see that with the degree of freedom of 1 and mean square of 7,716, the F value stands at 78.13, which is significant at below 0.01, which is accepting my hypothesis too. My next hypothesis was about the interaction effect, where I predicted that there will be a significant effect of work engagement and resilience at work on employee well-being. With degree of freedom 1, mean square of 6.7, the F value stands 0.69. It is not less than 0.05 or 0.01. So my hypothesis over here is rejected, says that there is no significant effect or interaction effect between work engagement and resilience at work on employee well-being. Next is a set of results for counterproductive work behavior, where I'll describe the descriptive statistics for it. And the next hypotheses that I'll talk are 3, 4, and 6. So as you can see in the screen, the low work engagement, this again, as I mentioned earlier, where we have unequal cell sizes and unique sum of errors in terms, where we talk about the low and high. The low work engagement and low resilience has a mean of for counterproductive work behavior 48.02. When employees low work engagement, high resilience is 41.05. High work engagement and low resilience is 36.61. High engagement levels and high resilience is 36.78. And counterproductive work behavior is a negative behavior. So when a person is having low levels of work engagement and low levels of resilience, he has high counterproductive work behavior, and it's tend to use high counterproductive work behavior. And low work engagement and high resilience, the lowest one talks about when the person is having high work engagement levels and low resilience at 36.61 is the lowest. But then my third hypothesis says that there's significant effect of work engagement on counterproductive work behavior. As you can see on the screen, work engagement with degree of freedom 1 with mean square of 2,609 has an F value of 12.78, which is below 0.01, which is significant. And this is accepts my hypothesis number 3. My next hypothesis is based on the effects of resilience and counterproductive work behavior, where resilience with degree of freedom 1 and mean square of 493 has an F value of 2.41, is not less than 0.01 or 0.05, which is not significant. And this rejects our hypothesis number 4. My next hypothesis was about the interaction effect of work engagement and resilience at work on counterproductive work behavior. With degree freedom 1 and mean square of 204, the F value stands as 2.61, which is not significant at 0.01 level. And this also rejects my hypothesis number 6. That was my hypothesis testing and results and tables. We'll next dive into our key findings and limitations of the study under discussion. My key findings of the study for work engagement is that well-being, work engagement effect is significant on employee well-being, and also it is significant on counterproductive work behavior. Next, resilience is significant for has significant effect on employee well-being, but is not significant for counterproductive work behavior. My both interaction effects, which I hypothesized would be significant, are not significant. Work engagement and employee well-being and counterproductive work behavior. The theoretical implications is that even though this is a implication hypothesis, this is the first study in the pharmaceutical industry within the Indian context. And my practical implication is that if you go back to the first slide, which talked about my interest in these topics, and we saw around 21% of employees are engaged, and the study also says that it has a significant impact on employee well-being, where India ranks in the bottom in various sectors. So the organizations should invest in work engagement, how to improve those and everything. That's what gives the pharmaceutical industries a push in employee well-being levels, because it's 3M, men, money, and material. If men is gone, I don't think they would have cash in so many things that they're cashing in now. So taking care of the men is very important. And my future research expectations of these were about to explore the task and job characteristics in the terms of skill variety, identity, autonomy, significance, and workload specifically, because it's very important. And also look into the organizational constraints. It's very different from one sector of organization to other sector of organizations, and the constraints of be it on like a supervisor subordinate effect, or even this very speculative one about how the work should be done, and has a very much impact on the combination of the variables. My next is resilience on employee well-being and counterproductive work behavior. Though we did not see a significant effect of resilience and counterproductive work behavior, we did see a significant effect of employee well-being, resilience and employee well-being. This is also one of a kind a study done in the pharmaceutical industry within an Indian context. So we have seen if the resilience is high, and then there is a high levels of counterproductive work behavior, the high levels of employee well-being. The study shows it's significant. So it is important for the organizations to build resilience through training programs and behavioral training programs. As I was part of learning and development team, and as an intern, we built through certain programs as a behavioral training. And it's to be noted that in Indian industries, not everyone is entitled to get through learning and development programs. They just only are allowed to do a certain number of days that they have to go through. So if we have to embed these kinds of techniques and strategies for the employees to follow through, they would be in a much better place. And though the future study, like the prior studies showed that there is an effect of resilience and counterproductive work behavior, just because it's not there in my study does not imply that it is not having an effect. So it is also through the training programs that we can say that, to the supervisors about it. So the future research should be done in this context, that where it has been various different Indian participants and various sectors, not just pharmaceutical industry. Next is interaction effect. This again a first study in pharmaceutical industry within the Indian context. The future research till all my prior research wasn't done in the context of Western authors. So there should be additional research done in the Indian participants. There could be cultural differences, situational differences about it. For example, we are in the part of unprecedented scenario of COVID. This could be also one of the factor impacting on this. So if you were to do a research in this kind, it would be having a very good generalizability later on. Next are my limitations. The first and foremost is my time period. The data was collected during the COVID, so it could be also one way, because resilience, work engagement, employee well-being, and counterproductive work behavior were in very much in fluid matters, because resilience and work engagement are something that a person had to go through, and there was fear of COVID too, and high risk and high intensity job at the pharmaceutical industry. And India was providing of 60% of the world vaccines. So they were under a lot of work pressure. So The next is a limited generalization that I could talk about. The first thing is the geographical location that I have taken my data collection, and again, specific industry that I have very much is the pharmaceutical industry that I took. The next is social desirability. We have one negative behavior that's a counterproductive work behavior. So I could think that there is a social, we can't control for social desirability. So that's one place, that's my limitation. So my next is my last is that I have to complete my conclusion. So the next is that I conclude that my study talks about the effects of resilience and work engagement on employee well-being, which is significant, which is not significant, and also as an interaction effect that's not significant. And it is to be noted that this is first of a kind and study the combination of the variables is a first in Indian context and in the pharmaceutical industry too. So the work engagement has a significant impact on employee well-being and counterproductive work behavior. Resilience only on employee well-being, and there is no interaction effect, which I think there should be further studies to conduct in a very different period of time to see with different sectors too, so we can see that why is it happening. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Tyler?
Hi, great presentation. Can you show me your original definition of resiliency again, please?
Resilience, just a minute.
Or you can just say it too, that works fine too.
No, it's I'm just trying to, oh. What's happening? Yeah, got it. So it's a skill and capacity to be robust under conditions of enormous stress and change. And in layman terms, it's be bouncing back from adversity. If you can see my screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a skill and capacity of an employee or a person to be robust under the conditions of enormous stress and change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? I have, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to let you ask yours because you might be asking the question I'm thinking of. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a kind of curiosity. I know the sample was unbalanced, but did you see any gender differences?
So as I've seen, that's 90.6% and 9.4 is my, if I'm correctly remembering, it's the difference. Yes, I did see in employee well-being and counterproductive behavior, but those were not the major hypothesis that I've postulated. It was not a major thing. So according to my advisor, those were like the next thing that you'd look into, like demographics were not that kind of important. But yeah, we did find in the terms of well-being and resilience and these two things. Yeah.
So was the resilience higher in
Yeah,
women
it was
and
higher
men?
in women.
Yes, that's what I thought.
So yeah, and they're in less number of terms. Yeah. I think I hardly found any executives that I personally met as a woman. So yeah, but they were resilient.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the question I was going to ask, so I'll ask mine. So you dichotomized your continuous variables to analyze it as a two-way ANOVA. Why did you make that choice?
So as first we thought first, me and my advisor sat down and we thought there would be, if there's higher levels of one thing, it could be leading to the lower levels of something else, in a kind of a interaction effect. So one thing, it's done in the basis of my prior research too, where I've seen the higher and lower levels. And my advisor asked me to do it. That's one of the requirements that I had to follow through, and there are certain things that I got through. But yeah, that was the two reasons that I took through it. Like one was the prior research, the other is like requirement.
Okay, thank you. Ioana Goodrich had a question. What personally surprised you the most while doing this research?
The interaction effect. I thought there would be that interaction effect because the theories also suggest that there would be. And I was, not only me, my advisor was so surprised to see it was not, and especially in the pharmaceutical industry where they were kind of different levels. And it could be also because of that, because it's very fluid at the moment. And the time that I collected was a time where my company at least and other companies were supplying a lot of vaccines, and they were trying to put out the stuff, like get the tasks done kind of a thing. So I think it was because of the short-term resilience levels, and also the work engagement levels were varying about it. And I think that was one thing where I was surprised. No interaction effect. That's why I want to do something with the other sectors too, and in different scenario, because people had to go to work in that moment and not sit at home and work. My executives were in the job, like they're in the plant and corporate sector. So
Thank you.
Other questions? I have another question, and excuse me if you already said this.
yeah.
What was the reasoning behind focusing on executives?
So one thing, when I was looking for, as I mentioned, I was working with the pharmaceutical industry. So I was purely working in corporate settings, and then I was put on a rotation with a plant base. So when I went there to see the kind of the kind of work they're doing, most of the non-executives do not speak in English, which could be one barrier to my data collection. Two, they are on contract basis. So I could not fulfill if they're currently working with that company or not. Three is the age of them. They tend to come after their bachelor's or master's, mostly bachelor's because they're non-executives in the levels. So that is why I have not collected data from them. So in the field, they had to be there for a couple of years, and then they had to be in working company. So they have to be a permanent employee. So the industry in India works very differently, where we have non-executives as like who are having a different background than the executives are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
There's
there
another
is,
one in the chat.
yeah.
Pharmaceutical industry is very competitive in the field of work. Yeah. So industry during that period of time, there was like cutthroat, like who was producing more number of vaccines out there, which country is taking which companies. So I didn't get data of the couple of other big companies because they weren't allowing anyone to come into their company altogether. Like they were not allowing people to, get into. I did not to name them, but one big company of India, which is on charts, says that it's not going to allow any kind of research thing because one, it could thought that someone could come and steal it. Yeah, because we're talking to executives rather than like the non-executives, which is not doing anything. So, and also when we're searching for small companies and the big companies, where we have two things, selecting them and also getting the data from them was being very difficult because it has to be from point of contact as well, which I even mentioned my procedure. That is why it was also difficult to have a lot of participants in my data collection. That could be one reason too. And I had a lot of outliers also. So,
Shruti, I'm kind of wondering now, I hadn't really thought about this before. You had an internship with one of these pharmaceutical companies, and did they then help you identify, give you points of contact in other companies that might be willing to participate?
yes. So I contact so as I was in L&D, so we were closely related to human resources. So I went ahead and like talked to them, do you know anyone? So either their previous coworkers or the other point of contact from HR. So I went mostly through HR rather than like through mainstream, like going to the executives.
Did your company request you to do this piece of research, or did you suggest it to them?
So no, after I found that these employee vital signs, that's when I told my say, I think this is a good place to start. So somewhere they gotta start. So it's a good place to start because there's something that shows that this is happening. So after doing a couple of researches, I think currently they are in building a certain models on resilience and work engagement in their behavioral training models. So I stopped my internship during that period of time. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
I forgive me if I just stepped away for a minute, so forgive me if you said this and I didn't see it. I noticed when you were talking about the statistical significance of a lot of your analyses, I didn't hear anything about effect size. I was kind of wondering if you could tell us about the size of the effects and how interesting that was.
Yeah, I did not talk about my FX size, but I did talk about my how much a difference is. We didn't go through that depth and level because that was not required to, but I just did talk about like how does it impact or affect the whole as a composite of the scale. If I were to do the FX size of each and everything, I think that would be a different ball game to altogether. So yeah, that's the one thing that it's true I didn't talk about it, but yeah. I think, but then as I mentioned earlier, there was a difference between males and females that I was mentioning before to asking me the question on it. So where I found the differences in resilience and employee well-being. That's the only place that's very significant. Hope this answered your question.
Other questions? If not, we can stop here. Thank you to our speaker and thank you all for participating. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.